Board of Education for January 27, 2026 is called to order. All items being considered this evening are posted on PPS website under the Board of Meetings tab. This meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV Services website and on channel 28 and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the district website for replay times. Some housekeeping stuff, just make sure you keep the aisles and signs below chin level so you can see your own screen. All right, let's get started. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's virtual work session. Hope this doesn't bring back any bad memories of the special meeting of the Board of Education. Thank you for being here or watching this later. We have a short agenda tonight, just a brief overview. We'll begin with a brief bond update, and then we will look at the legislative priorities for 2026 for this year's short session. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with a vote on the consent agenda. All right, let's start with the bond update. This update was originally scheduled in the January 13th board meeting, but was postponed to tonight due to the length of that last meeting. I'll hand it over to Dr. Armstrong.
Great, thank you, Chair Wong. I'd like to introduce Senior Chief John Frankel to provide his regular update. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, good evening, directors. Also, Kara, I think TJ and Sarah are here. Can you let them in as well as panelists?
They are already here.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I'm here.
All right, so yeah, good evening, directors. Happy to be here this evening, and this is, as you know, part of our regular monthly bond update. And so I have Sarah Norman here and TJ Hopkins, who will provide this overview. And TJ, I think you are sharing the slides, correct, or Sarah?
I'm actually sharing the slides, and TJ is actually going to be presenting. But just wanted to take a minute to say hello and thank you all so much. We're thrilled to be here, and we're thrilled to provide this bond update. Excited to share it with you. So here goes the screen. Hopefully, technology works for us tonight.
Yes.
As we all know, TJ and I both are in the same building. We're at the PEC, but we're not in the same office because we were worried about technology echoing. So we just wanted to let you guys know. So we're in offices next to one another right now so that we didn't have any technology issue. Can you guys see our screen at this point?
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. Well,
Yes.
Perfect. Then TJ, I'm going to let you get going.
Absolutely. Good evening to the board. Chair Wong, Vice Chair DePass, Directors, Student Representative, and Superintendent Dr. Armstrong. My name is TJ Hopkins, Program Director for Presidio, and as Sarah stated, I'm going to be providing you with a bond program update. So this is the same update we were scheduled to present on January 13th. However, it was postponed by the board and rescheduled. So here we are. To start, I'd like to share some of the tasks we're working on concurrent to the development of our program management plan. We've reestablished meetings with key stakeholders, directors, subject matter experts for continued communication and collaboration. And this is going to be particularly important as we move forward in the modernization designs and subsequent construction, as well as the development of scope and budgets for the consolidated projects for the 2025 bond program. Next, I'd like to share with you our procurement schedule for third-party services. You'll see that it's broken out into 3 distinct phases. Phase 1 was dedicated to establishing our boilerplate in cooperation with purchasing and contracting. And we're also carrying that boilerplate forward into phase 2, phase 3 procurements. At the end of phase 3, which is where we're at right now, it'll result in approximately 10 solicitations, each with multiple awards, resulting in a pool of consultants supporting the bond program needs. So this is going to expedite our ability to provide services as soon as we identify projects and we can get these consultants on board. The key point is the board can anticipate contracts presented for approval in the months of April and May.
And I just wanted to add, TJ, this is, if you guys were able to catch up on the FIO meeting, this was also presented at that committee meeting as well, because this really is the driver to the schedules for all things related to the 2025 bond program. These are owner contracted consultants, and so we really needed to get these people on board in order to move all of those planned projects forward.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And we're just going to skip over or just go quickly through these next 3 slides. This is just a more detailed breakdown of each of the phases. It's basically the same information we went over, just a different format. And next we have the project schedules. So these are the same schedules that were presented in the comprehensive plans and approved by the board in the fall of 2025. This first one is Cleveland High School, showing the overall project timeline. We're currently in the design development phase, wrapping that up, and then starting construction documents. So the CMGC is going to start improvements at Marshall campus, which include the new track and field surfacing. And as you can see down here, so that's all going to happen in late June, early July as far as construction start. And groundbreaking date has not been solidified just yet, but that's coming soon. So we can expect that likely sometime mid to late June.
Although we're still coordinating that because it's really our desire to have students available for our groundbreaking. I think it's really, really important. This is all about the kids. And so all of our groundbreakings, we'd like to try and coordinate with the administrations that are on those campuses and with the students. And so we think it will either be prior to the end of this school year, or it will be right when they come back from for the kickoff of the next school year. So we will keep you posted. We're still coordinating that with communications and administration, but we will continue to keep you posted on it.
Okay, this next schedule is Jefferson High School. The design team's nearing completion of design development phase, and the CMGC is coordinating early trade procurement, early field work, while the overall building and site. Big news here is groundbreaking has been scheduled for May 29th. So that's exciting.
We're really excited. We actually originally had it scheduled for May 30th, and in coordination with the administration, they really wanted to coincide it with Senior Day. So we are thrilled to be able to host the groundbreaking for Jefferson High School on May 29th. More information to come from our comms team so that we can get it on everyone's calendar for Jefferson.
This is Stephanie. Can I
was going to say, I just saw your hand up. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you. I was going to just wait till the end, but then I realized I'm going to forget what I wanted to ask because everything else is so interesting. So the groundbreaking for Jefferson is the 29th of May. Did I understand on the Cleveland that we may not do groundbreaking until school starts back up in August or September?
We were just thinking about it because even though demolition starts of the old building this summer, it really is a desire for the district to have student involvement. And so students are going to be out. And so we just want to make sure that we coincide whatever that groundbreaking date is when students can be involved. So either sometime in June or the beginning of the following school year.
So I think I didn't understand what groundbreaking meant then. So it doesn't delay anything that would happen over the summer. It's sort of just like
it's ceremonial.
Ceremonial.
It's ceremonial. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It does not delay. It does not delay it. Thank you for that clarification. It does not delay a thing. It is ceremonial, and we just want to make sure that the students are involved.
Okay. So
I love this. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next schedule is Ida B. Wells. Again, we're nearing the end of design development phase with documents due to Portland Public Schools last week in February. So that's probably about a month away. Construction document phase begins in March with construction starting in December of 2026. So the big news here is all modernizations are on schedule, and we're still tracking that August 2029 school start. All right, on to the financials. So this slide is depicting the bond program dashboard overall from 2012 to 2025 bond measures, with the total funds, cumulative funds at 4.6 billion. Let's see, I'm sorry. So roughly 52% of the funds are still available, with the bulk of those being in the 2020 and 2025 bond measures. Okay, this is the 2012 dashboard, and for all intents and purposes, we are in reconciliation phase. Our goal is to close out this program in Q1 of this year, and then we're looking at reallocating all remaining funds, potentially to FAM for future identified projects.
Right. The money right now, we're still in reconciliation. Everyone, I want to make sure that everyone is aware of this. We are still very much in reconciliation, reconciling the 2012, 2017, and 2020 bond. Right now, with where we are, we're showing that we have about $400,000 remaining in the 2012 bond. So the 2012 bond was accessibility and seismic was the bond language that was associated with the 2012 bond. So what we would do is we would reallocate that. We would try and identify campuses and programs where we can utilize the funding from this bond for those type of upgrades to campuses that have not received them. So we just want to let you know although it's going to move into year 2025, 26, the designation for this particular bond program was accessibility, middle school science upgrades, and accessibility and seismic was 2012. That's what the bond language was. And so we want to make sure that any funding that is remaining is going towards those type of projects. But again, still in reconciliation, but we want to show you where we are so that you know that we're getting there. We're getting there on all of the bond programs.
All right, so this again is just showing the breakdown of projects, 33 total projects for 2012. We have 24 that have been completed, 6 in construction, 2 in post-construction, and this has likely changed and updated because this information was coming from December. I know we've got a lot of projects that have since been closed out.
But we do still have one in pre-planning. So from the 2012 project, from the 2012 bond. And so we just want to kind of show you, as much as we want to push to close this bond, there are still some items that just have taken this long to come to fruition. And so but we want to be able to show you this on a monthly basis so that you understand where the bond programs are throughout the district on every single bond.
Okay, next is our 2017 dashboard. Total funds are just under $1 million, or I'm sorry, 888 million, with 7% available in this bond measure. Again, this one's close to being closed out. There's if you advance to the next slide, there's 46 active projects. And again, we're currently reconciling those and auditing them for closeout as well.
I just want to go back to this slide really quick. Again, at the top of these slides, we try and summarize the bond language that the 2017 bond was tied to. Again, it's just a way to continue to visualize, because our memories are what our memories are, right? We're human. So at the top, the 2017 bond measure was the modernizations of Benson, Lincoln, McDaniel, and then multiple MPG, as I like to call it, multiple pathways to graduation, and Kellogg Middle School. At the same time, this bond included water quality, security upgrade, new roofs, asbestos abatement, radon remediation, lead paint stable. There was a lot in this bond. Lead safety upgrades, and again, seismic and accessibility. So right now, we've got 59 million that, again, we are still reconciling the 2017 bond, but should we have accomplished kind of what had been planned, that money will be spent on those projects, right? Those type of projects. when TJ says FAM, that is kind of facilities and maintenance, not facilities, I mean, it's facilities, they do smaller projects, multi-site projects. And so what we would do is we would identify, like, we still have some fire alarm upgrades that need to happen on our campuses that have not all been completed. So that would be, some of this money could be reallocated to those projects, even though, again, in the 26-27 year, it's actually being funded from the 2017 bond program because it was part of that bond program to begin with. Stephanie, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, thank you. Lower hand. I was going to chime in on the last one. Can you give an example from the 2012 and I guess also the 2017? Like for the 2012, what is still in pre-planning as an example of what's outstanding?
So that was, I can speak to that. That was Franklin. There was a security, and I don't know if it's fencing, but there is some monies that were, actually, I don't even think there was money on that line item. It was just a placeholder for Franklin, and it looked like it could be fencing, it could be access control, it could be security cameras. That's part of what we're doing, is trying to figure out trying to audit that to make sure that, you know, we're not leaving anything on the table, that we've committed and completed everything that measure set out to do.
But that is the campus that is currently identified, that we've kind of inherited at this point. That is Franklin is the campus that is identified, and that's what's in pre-planning right now. For 2017, we have multiple re-roof projects that are still ongoing that are funded. I can't name the campuses, Stephanie, or Director Engelsman, I'm sorry. But there's multiple re-roofing projects that we're going through. There's multiple fire alarm upgrade priorities that we're going through there. So those are some of the projects that are still ongoing that are being funded from these bond programs. 2020.
All right, 2020. Again, 1.3 billion funds total. We are looking at about 42% available, with 551 million left to schedule out. So that means we've got a lot of work to do to identify the projects, get them into pre-planning, and move those forward.
But we're within the 6 to 8 year timeline of a typical bond program of this size. So this is not surprising, very honestly. I just want to kind of reiterate that. At the same time, this also has our One North program in it, 2020, that also is included here. And so also the pre-planning for Jefferson, Ida B. Wells, and Cleveland, along with, there was a big curriculum portion and new technology for classroom and distant learning within this bond program. And so all of that is ongoing. Curriculum and IT are also still funding different projects from this bond program for those things. As you can see, this is kind of overwhelming when you see 61 projects in construction. I bet you're like, oh my God, what are they doing? Some of that means, what that means is it could be some curriculum construction kind of encompasses anything associated that's in progress. And so that could be some curriculum projects, that could be some technology projects. These are also, again, just multi-campus. There's some PE items in here as well. So that's kind of some examples of this. We are still, again, reconciling the value. We have to reconcile between two softwares within the district. We're reconciling that. And then we're also updating the project management tool, which you'll hear us probably refer to eBuilder a lot, and we apologize, but that is the project management tool that PPS uses. So we just want to let you know that's where a lot of this information lives and comes from.
All right, this brings us to our final program, which is 2025, 1.8 billion with 96% of funds available. So this does include, at the top of the slide, you can see all the different consolidated projects, security upgrades, seismic technology, improvements for Roosevelt, Lincoln, Franklin, and Grant with the athletic hub at Jackson Middle School and Marshall campus, as well as the modernizations.
Yes, and this does include the extension of the construction costs for Jefferson High School. And we are in pre-planning for all this entire bond program right now. We are in the months to come, we'll be presenting kind of master scheduling for each one of these. We did present the modernizations, so Ida B. Wells, Jefferson, and Cleveland, but we'll also be presenting the athletic programs, kind of how those will come online, how those are going through design, engineering, land use, and then into planning and or into construction. And so that will be kind of to come. And oh, Patty, I see your hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I just want to be clear. So like the 2012 and the 2017 bond, everything has to be spent on what we said we spend it on in those bonds before we can transfer it, say, to seismic, new seismic.
Yes, ma'am, that is my understanding. And we are going to consult with our bond compensability attorneys that we have and make sure that if there is another avenue to spend that money, we will. The good news is the bond language is pretty, you had seismic in multiple bonds, if that makes sense. So that kind of gives the district so much flexibility from that perspective. And so it really, once we get this reconciliation going, I know that is a huge priority for the district. And so absolutely, we'll start identifying additional projects that we can then schedule out, even though the years will be, 26, 27, 28, we'll be able to identify additional projects with that funding.
And so it was really good. We had seismic in those too.
It actually, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It sure was. It was very good that you had seismic in those too. Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Are there any other questions? Oh, yes. Director LaForte.
Okay, lowering hand. Hi, thank you for this presentation. I got a few, I've just been saving, I'm taking notes and saving them till the end. So I've got a short list.
Okay.
On the slides, the initial slides we've got an overview of the procurement schedule. The duration says 0 days. I assume, is that just a placeholder?
It
It's
is.
not 0 days.
It is.
So when does the RFP window generally close? Are any of these finished or are they all still open?
We actually have a few that are coming to an end as of the second week of February. Some of these we put on an expedited track, and the shortest procurement duration we can have is a 14 to 15 day duration. I will be honest with you, it's tough to do that because you don't get a good response, right? And many of these procurements we're trying to get a pool of people to come work with the district, right? And so we really want to leave them open for a bit of a duration so that we get a good response. But we've been kind of working the phones and working contacts to notify people that these RFPs are on the street to try and drive up business for PPS and make sure that we get a good return. In our update in March, we'll be able to tell you kind of, hey, this was what our response was to geotechnical. This is what our response was. We'll be able to kind of tell you by the numbers what it was, right, from procurement. So we'll be tracking that going forward.
So you mentioned this like a pool RFP process. Can you explain what that means? Like, tell me like I'm 5.
Yeah, so no, it's fine. It's what it is. It's kind of we're qualifying different entity, geotechnical testing and balancing, traffic control planning services, architectural engineering. We're pre-qualifying them and then we're evaluating them through the RFP process that has an evaluation criteria. And then we will give a notice of intent to multiple people so that we can actually do multiple planning at the same time. Instead of doing project by project procurement, we're actually doing program procurement so that we can have things in design throughout the year, regardless of where we are from a construction perspective, if that helps.
So if you say you're pre-qualifying them, does that mean that they have to be invited to respond?
No, it's open. It's an open procurement. It's a public procurement. It's RFP, but there are qualifications within the procurement. Okay. But we're just able to award to more than just one bidder.
Got it. So for the RFPs that are out there, is pricing a consideration? Because I know previously we had one recently that was just pricing methodology versus the actual cost. Do these include the actual cost as part of the response?
No, these These do not include a cost component. These are qualification based, but they get a notice of intent, and then we negotiate cost through that process. And if we can't come to terms, we move on to the next person. That's the benefit of having pools.
Okay, so you would award it, but without knowing the potential cost.
We would give a notice of intent of award prior to assigning them a project to then price.
Okay. Does the procurement schedule, does it include planning and work for One North?
Yes, it does. Yes.
And you touched on Marshall on we were talking about the planning for Cleveland, the new field and track resurfacing timing. I believe you said summer. I've heard some rumblings that may happen sooner because of the Grample lighting situation. What is the current timeline for the Marshall field? Has that changed?
Not to my knowledge. No, it has not. The timeline for Marshall. We are trying to push to get those into going sooner. We're currently still in procurement.
Okay, and I mean just for the field.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, just for the fields. We're still negotiating contract with our field turf. I'm just going to say field turf. Yeah. All those guys. So right now we're currently on schedule.
So that option had been discussed for grant student athletes. Since sounds like the lights aren't going to be in by March 1st, would it be safe to assume that Marshall is actually off the table as a solution?
I don't know that that's completely accurate, because it is my understanding that there have been some conversations with Marshall and PIL with how we would reload. And I think lacrosse is the one that we discussed on the 13th, and there has been some back and forth. I will have to follow up with you, Director Lafort, because I've kind of stepped away from that conversation for a bit, but I'm happy to kind of dig back in and provide some feedback.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, I've got two more questions. On the 2025 dashboard, I just noticed this as we were presenting. It says at the top, it says modernizations, Cleveland and Wells.
Oops.
I assume this includes Jefferson as well.
It does. I said it, but we're sorry. Yep.
No, it's fine. I just want to make sure. I'm like, okay, everything's in here.
It is. It includes the additional construction costs for Jefferson High School, and we will make sure to get that on there. Yes.
And then, how are we tracking on the options presented for the Jefferson transition? Have we vetted the shell option? Do we know what the plan is yet? Like, when will we hear more about that?
We will know. We will be presenting. We're still meeting with contractors and the contractor and the design team, and we will be presenting the kind of an executive summary of those work sessions to leadership first week of February.
Okay, so when will that come to the board?
I will have to turn that over to Dr. Franco or Dr. Armstrong.
Yeah, I think we'll have to. That's a good question. I think once we get the report, obviously, as soon as we get it, we'd love to take it to whether it be a regular board meeting or work session or a committee meeting.
Great. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director DePass, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate this presentation and getting the clarification. One of the things I learned early on in my career with construction management is to never give a date, never give an occupancy date. You're going to be able to move in on the 16th because those dates change. And so just a caution to everybody to allow the process to happen. I just had a quick comment. And I really appreciate that you're doing these RFPs for qualifications, because you're trying to establish a pool of qualified contractors that can then be pulled together to work on various projects. So it's not project specific, it's program specific. I think that's really great. It's a smart way to do it. And I've done this contracting and procurement this way also. So you have a pool of people that can do HVAC, that can do plumbing, that can do painting, whatever it is. I wanted to, it sounds like you've done really great outreach, but I just wanted to name a few organizations that I hope that you're engaging with. And that would be PDBG, NAMCO Oregon, which I'm sure is on your list, OWAMI, Latino Build, and the Native American Chamber, those business organizations all have BIPOC business owners, contractors, subcontractors willing and able to do the work, but they do need to be engaged. They all have regular business meetings, lunch meetings, dinner meetings, and it's a great time to kind of socialize these projects. And it's that type of like intentional outreach that will get you to a list of people that can do the work that are available. I know like just every single division, I know some amazing contractor that's a member of one of these organizations that I've worked with for the past 25 years. And so I hope that we're reaching out to those 5 that I identified. I believe that there's a mixer coming up. If it's not in February, it's in March, that has all of those chambers in one place.
Oh, wow.
I would, if you're interested, I would love to forward an invitation so you can kind of table there. We're PPS, we're doing this work just to gain some interest in people that may be interested in submitting a proposal for these, the request for proposals. And that's it. Thanks for the good work. It's really like, this is very detailed, and I appreciate knowing kind of where we're at with each of our bond projects.
No, Director DePass, thank you so much. And please do share that information. We would love to have a doing business with PPS table at those events. In fact, that is the outreach that we will be kicking off in February, is doing business with PPS, really trying to just get the word out there. What is PPS doing? What projects do we have coming up? What, and just be out there and talking to people and getting them excited about the program that's out ahead and the work that we're going to do for our students. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. These are amazing contractors of all sizes that I think and actually PPS has had in the past people that came to these meetings regularly. And I think it's a great place to just build those relationships that when you need them, you can activate them, but they have to have a proposal in. So I will share that information as I find it.
Thank you so much. And we will also follow up on those with those organizations as well. I wrote, as you were talking, I was writing. So we will follow up with those organizations.
Let me know if you need a name of somebody that can, like, you get their name and it's done.
Got it. You got it. Thank you so much. Director Engelsman, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. 2 things. So I appreciate the idea that never give a date, but we have a hard date of August 2029 with our taxpayers and our voters expecting their students and our students to be in there. So while I appreciate the idea that we can't give hard dates, we have hard dates and our voters expect that hard date. And so to get that hard date 3 years from now, we're going to have to stick to other hard dates. So I'm going to push back a little that we do need to be respectful of the whole project and realizing that if we get a week, a month behind at the beginning, then it will snowball very quickly. I think everyone on here has had personal projects that can snowball quickly. So everyone listening probably has had that too. So my question before I wanted to just push back on that concept was I wanted to hopefully get an update on the Powell Park turf. I haven't heard anything about that. So could you please give an update on where that is and when we can expect that project to get going?
Yes, we have Powell Park, correct? I just want to make sure I understood you correct. Yeah, we actually had an amazing meeting with Parks and Recs on Monday, and the team is working through an MOU on Powell Park and multiple campuses. And so it was a positive meeting. We should be able to provide an update to the board in the coming weeks. So, but yeah, we're continuing. It's still on our radar. And actually, Deborah Kafori just joined. I was going to say she was actually in the meeting. So yeah, go ahead.
You were going to say whatever her name is, she can jump on in. Deborah Kafori, Chief of Staff. Yes, we had a very productive meeting with Parks yesterday. They get our desire to move forward quickly. And I'm thankful that you asked that question, Director Engelsman. I was on mute, so I wasn't able to talk because I wanted to mention this point, that this is our entire athletic fields, as we all know, is an important part of our bond program, and Powell Park is high on the top of the list.
All right. Well, thank you all. And I'd like to turn this back over to Dr. Armstrong. Thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Director Sullivan, I just saw your hand. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah,
Okay.
I couldn't find my hand. I just want some little bit of clarification as to how it would work. So you approve a pool of people for different jobs. So I'm thinking, say you've got 6 electricians that you think are good. How do you choose which one? I mean, we've got 4 projects going. How do you choose who's working on which? And do they apply for certain schools, or are they just up there to do whatever we want them to do?
We assign them. So the RFP is actually open. So the RFP is for the overall bond program for their scope of work. So I'm just going to take traffic control planning services. So the RFP that is on the street is for traffic control planning service for the 2025 bond program. So that is any project that we could potentially have that we would need a traffic control engineer to participate in. Once those engineers are qualified, we will then evaluate them. They go through the same process, and then we, PPS, the bond program, will assign projects to each one of the qualified engineers that is in the pool.
And then you assign the project, and they say how much it's going to cost, or
correct. And then those contracts come to the board for approval. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Director LaFour, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to also push back a little bit on deadlines, because I do feel like you've done a really good job of actually incorporating into those into these plans. And, because without it, there's truly, there's no objective way for the board or the public to assess whether a project is on track, or if it's delayed, or if it's been, pushed to the bottom of the list. So I do think that's really important. It doesn't mean that they can't change. As things can potentially come up, but having a baseline plan is really important. So I appreciate seeing all of that here. Let's see. I just want to go back to the pool RFP situation one more time. Is there any possible way, like I understand like the difference between an RFQ and an RFP, and that we would award this based on the ability to do the work, not necessarily the price, but I do have I do take issue with awarding contracts of this size without any knowledge of what the potential price might be.
We're not awarding contracts. I want to clarify that one more time. We're selecting a pool of people.
Okay.
And we're giving them a notice of intent.
Okay.
And then we are going to assign them a scope of work that they will then provide a price proposal for.
Okay.
And we will negotiate that price proposal and then go to contract, and that contract will come to the board for approval.
So multiple vendors within that pool will bid on the same piece of business.
It is the same way that we did the procurement for all of the seismic work that we are doing.
Okay.
That we have done that. One of the reasons we went out for seismic the way we did is so that we could expedite those projects. This is a very well-known way to procure within the state of Oregon. This is the way you are able to get projects designed and engineered and through permitting to where they're on the shelf for you to go to construction when you're planning a program.
That was actually one of my next questions is, in terms of like the pool of vendors, will this work stay in Oregon?
Yes.
Okay. And then for Powell Park, could you give us, and that's might be a question for Deborah, just a little more detail versus like, we had a conversation, like where are we making progress?
Yeah, I wish I could give you more details, except all I can say at this point is we had a meeting, which may sound trite, but it's been a long time coming, and there were several members of their team there. They were enthusiastic and very motivated to move forward.
Great. And I also want to give a shout out to Sarah. We spent some time together today over at Grant doing a walkthrough of the athletic facilities in the school. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciated your visit and being able to show you the property in person and all the things. So thank you very much for making the time.
Absolutely. Thank you. And always here to answer any questions for any of you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And now I am, if there's no other questions, I don't see any hands, but I'm going to kick it back over to Dr. Armstrong.
Thank you for that, Sarah. There's just a couple things I wanted to emphasize. The first is I wonder if to that dashboard, if we can add some sort of little piggy bank or something that shows like savings, maybe month over month or even quarterly, that has been saved through various negotiation tactics. I think that would be great to see, because one of the things that we talked about with changing in the way in which we do some of our project management with savings. So if there's a way to capture and show that in the monthly presentations, that would be great. The second thing that I wanted to say was, I don't know if we can say that all the work will stay in Oregon, because, and I don't know if you were speaking just to those RFPs, but I know we're also doing something that we've never done before, which is building 3 all-electric high schools. That hasn't been done anywhere in the US, right? And so there could be like a special technical expertise or something. I mean, I think that's a big question to ask, if it will all stay in Oregon. And to make and to say that, I want to just offer the opportunity for Sarah to correct that, because we don't know what we don't know.
No, Dr. Armstrong, thank you so much for that. When I said yes, I actually thought Director LaForte said, is the procurement okay, and is going to okay in the state of Oregon? So I misunderstood the question. So thank you for that clarification. Yes, 100% agree with everything you just said. We are going to recruit local businesses. We are going to use local contractors and architectural and engineering firms, but there is no doubt that we have specialty programs that will come from nationwide. And we want the best, right? So we want to recruit the best to the state of Oregon. We want to bring that business here. So absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify that. And I apologize that I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, no worries. And then just the last thing, Michelle, did you want to add to that?
I did. I just wanted to say that it's a really strong value to procure from within Oregon. And there are some cases with public procurement where the expertise is available in Oregon. Along with that commitment and that value about spending locally is a commitment to hiring women and minority-owned businesses. Oregon State has a program that prioritizes women-owned and minority-owned businesses, but not every specialty that we're going to see is available in Oregon. A great example, and many of you have heard me say this, is I worked on a procurement team that had to bring a dinosaur skeleton to ship it from OMSI here in Portland on the waterfront east side back to the Smithsonian. I would have loved to hire a minority-owned business from Oregon to ship that back, but the scope of work required cataloging the bones by number, labeling them, making specialty foam carrying containers, packing it in a climate controlled, and there were all kinds of conditions for the drivers. And it turns out there's only 2 companies in the whole US that does that kind of work. And so while the priority would have been to hire someone from within Oregon and then a woman and minority owned business, we just couldn't find that here. And so to expedite and keep projects on track, to Sarah's point, we do want to hire from within, except if there's special expertise that is not available in Oregon, in which case we would go for keeping the project on track, if that makes sense. So it's an order of operations where you prioritize locally. If nothing's available, then you look for the best expertise outside of Oregon. And that is specialty areas.
Yes, and Director DePass, to your point, that's not only from a specialty area, but it's also from a capacity area as well. And so we want to make sure that we're conscious of that, as Director Engelsman and Director LaForte also said, dates matter, and like we've got to stay on schedule. And so we've got to make sure that we're looking at the capacity and also the material delivery to our schools. So thank you for that.
In years where there's a lot of development happening in Portland, it's very challenging to find an electrician, a plumber, a bricklayer, or a steel worker. And in that case, then you have to go through the union halls or through other means to hire outside of Oregon, because there's no capacity for that particular division of work in Oregon. They're completely booked up for 2 years out. So in that case, if you have to get a project done, you look for the next best option, and many times it's not within the state of Oregon. but that the state of
Thank
Oregon hiring is a strong value.
Yeah, and then thank you for that. And just the last thing that I wanted to mention is, and I'll be getting this information to the board in a separate email, but I received a letter actually today from the City of Portland Historic Landmarks Commission with some concerns with the Cleveland project, and they're asking to be consulted. And so I'll send out information, what that means, what it doesn't mean, and what our next steps are. But like I said, that just came through today, so give me a little bit of time to process what that means, and I'll share more in the coming days with that. But since I just got it today and we're talking about bond projects, I thought I'd let you know, which may or may not be new news, but yeah, we need to have a conversation with the Historic Landmark Commission. So just wanted to note that. All right, team. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you, team, TJ and Sarah and John. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
By the way, could we wish John Franco a happy birthday tomorrow, along with Michelle Morrison, Candace Gross.
And who else? And you. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you so
Dr.
much.
Franco.
Thank you.
I think that's great. So most of you guys miss mine, so it's really easy. It's exactly 2 months behind the 3 birthdays. So
Oh,
maybe
well, happy
next
birthday,
year,
Dr. Armstrong.
November 28th, I'll hear from my bosses. But anyway,
It's on the calendar. Thank you.
yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday to our trio. It's super exciting.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, JT and Sarah and John, and for answering all the questions. Let's move on to the next topic. Next up, we have our 2026 legislative priorities. This basically we're going to be discussing and voting on them. So I'll hand this off to Dr. Armstrong again.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wong. So this year's legislative priorities are coming in at a particularly pivotal moment for our district and for public education across Oregon. Our students and families are experiencing compounding pressures, both from local issues and national concerns, as I'm sure you're following. And at the same time, you know, we're confronting a significant budget deficit that we're in engagement with. And we know that this has been for many consecutive years. And so while we talk about 50 million this year, we know if we were to add up at least the last 3 years, we're well over 100 million, which is pretty significant for a district our size. And so despite these challenges, our schools have made important gains since the pandemic through intentional evidence-based investments, and those gains could be at risk, quite honestly. And so I am excited to have you get in discussion about legislative priorities and to turn it over to our Chief of Staff, Deborah Kafoury.
Good evening, directors. We are very excited to be here tonight to share with you proposed legislative agenda and to get your feedback and engagement. I am here to help with questions and as backup, but I am going to introduce our new Senior Manager for Government Relations, Ben Gurwitz. He, I think, has been in contact with all of you already, but he's hit the ground running. Joining us recently, most recently, he was with Disability Rights Oregon, where he worked with PPS and other school and education advocates around the state on issues primarily related at the time to special education and other issues, but he's 100% on PPS team now, and we're really excited to have him. So I'll turn it over to you, Ben.
Well, thank you, Chief Kafoury and Dr. Armstrong. Good evening, everyone. Chair Wong, Vice Chair DePass, directors, student representatives, and Dr. Armstrong. For the record, my name is Ben Gurwitz, and as Deborah mentioned, I'm just incredibly honored to serve as your new Senior Manager of Government Relations for the district, where I'll be serving as the liaison between the school district and our local, state, and federal partners. And tonight, I'm here to recommend a legislative agenda for your input and approval. This is my best effort to advance your shared goals of increasing student learning outcomes and eliminating gaps in opportunities and outcomes between students and student groups. Before we get to the substance of the agenda, I'd like to give a brief preview on what's to come during the 2026 short session. In Oregon, the legislature alternates between 6-month long sessions in the odd years and 6-week short sessions during the even years. This year's legislative session will begin on Monday, February 2nd, so just 6 days from now, but again, who's counting? And it will go through March 9th, lasting just 35 days. Colloquially, we like to call it a sprint. At the top of everyone's mind will be the budget deficit. We are hearing from our legislative partners and leadership that Oregon faces an estimated $700 million budget gap when accounting for the cost to implement H.R. 1, like SNAP, work requirements, and reduced Medicaid funding from the federal government. And the outlook grows more challenging in the subsequent biennium as impacts of the bill compound. This budget deficit is realized in the general fund, which is one of the main sources of funding for education. The legislature will receive an updated revenue forecast on February 4th, which will provide a more accurate picture of the state's economic outlook and will be the number that the legislature uses to balance the budget. The legislature will focus on balancing the budget through cuts to programs and generating new revenue streams. On the policy front, legislators will focus on protecting immigrant communities, protecting reproductive health care, ensuring the Department of Transportation has enough money to fund roads and infrastructure, and making Oregon more affordable for working families by addressing the cost of housing, food, and utilities. So now let's get to the meat of this presentation and talk about what we recommend for our legislative agenda. Our office recommends that the number one priority for the legislative session will be to push for additional revenue to prevent cuts to our schools. Oregon is only one of 3 states that automatically conforms to the federal tax code. Under Oregon law, the state has the authority to selectively disconnect from specific provisions of the Internal Revenue Code, and the result could help Oregon mitigate revenue losses as a result of H.R. 1. We also recommend that the legislature use the Education Stability Fund to prevent cuts. The Oregon Stability Fund is projected to have more than $1.25 billion available for the governor and the legislature to use to prevent potential cuts during the 25-27 biennium. The legislature tapped into those reserves during COVID, and they can do it again. Now on to the second piece of our core legislative agenda, and that's to address the impact of federal immigration enforcement in our local communities. And we urge you to call on our legislative leaders to help safeguard our immigrant students and families, to support a legislative package that includes protecting the data privacy and sensitive health information for our students and their families, passing legislation to allow people to sue federal agents for violating their constitutional rights, such as unlawfully entering their home or school grounds, strengthening Oregon's anti-discrimination protections for our immigrant students, and limiting the use of masks and standardized identification for all law enforcement. And then finally, as we struggle with the impact of inadequate funding from the state, we will fight against additional layers of requirements, reporting mandates, and compliance burdens without a dedicated source of sustainable funding. With so many districts facing cuts while also working to improve student outcomes, it is also not the time for significant policy changes. We recommend that the board advocate for no new mandates without the funding to go along with it. So now to the exciting part. How can you all get involved? I'm excited that 7 of you have already signed up to participate in the Joint Advocacy Day with COSA and OSBA and OASBO on February 17th, where we will meet with legislators to advocate for the resources our kids need and deserve. There are also more immediate engagement opportunities as the legislative session kicks off. This weekend, members of the legislature will be holding town halls to hear from their constituents. On Tuesday, there will be an opportunity to provide testimony at the Joint Ways and Means Committee in Salem from 5 to 7 p.m. And on Thursday, so a week from this Thursday, from noon to 2 p.m., there will be a rally in front of the state capitol calling on the legislature to fight for our schools and our families. And I'll email each of you more information as it becomes available. And I also want to encourage you to engage the community through your social media channels. For all those wanting to learn more, they can learn more at our government relations page. That if you just Google PPS Government Relations, you can find it. And I'll also be providing weekly legislative updates to keep you informed about our priorities and key developments as the session unfolds. So finally, this session is a bit of a sprint, as I mentioned, but feel free to reach out anytime to myself or Chief of Staff Kafoury if you have any questions. And with that, thank you so much for allowing me to present to you all, and my pleasure to turn it back to Dr. Armstrong.
Great job and welcome to the team. We're so glad you're here. I believe the board has questions, so how about we just turn it over for question and answer.
All right, let's have Director Engelsman.
Oh, thanks. Hi. I wasn't sure. I wasn't paying attention to whether Director pass one up first. So can you help me understand this Oregon Education Stability Fund? I read from those slides that it is a renewable source and has a permanent funding source if it is depleted in any amount. I guess my first question is, do you know what is the renewable aspect, or what is the permanent funding source where this comes from? And if you don't, that's fine. We can talk offline, but it sounds like it's like permanently being renewed.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sorry. We'll get you. We'll send an email out that describes exactly the process that which it goes through and how much it's replenished each year.
And thank you. And so currently, despite cumulative years of budget crisis and PPS, our state is sitting on $1.25 billion that are supposed to be dedicated entirely to education stability, and our lawmakers are not using it. Is that what I'm to understand? Okay.
I'm sorry. I have to say something. There have to be these triggers that have to be met to use the funding. The triggers are based on economic downturn. And we're in a weird situation because it's not as much an economic downturn as the federal government like inflicting great amounts of pain on our state budget. So it is a little bit more than just it's just sitting there. There has to be like reasons to use it, but there does appear like there might be reasons, right? Ben, Deborah, I think that's right.
Yes.
I think the funding source is the corporate kicker.
And you're right, Director Split. There does have to be some trigger, or there should be some triggers. However, it also takes a vote of the legislature. So it's not like it's under a lockbox that they can only get at it if these triggers are met. They can also vote to appropriate it.
And could this Education Stability Fund, could it be used to prevent, I know that there's potentially additional cuts being talked about, but could it be used to prevent the 50 to 55 million that we're already talking about?
So Director Engelsman, I think the triggers would have to be met, and it would have to be a vote of the legislature to decide how to spend that money. The board certainly has the authority to engage in advocacy, asking for those funds to be spent. And frankly, I can't guarantee that all that money will go to help cover a lot of that budget deficit. But advocacy in that direction could occur.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Kafoury and Ben. I would I would love some more information. I didn't ask in advance. I would love information because, you know, it's splashing across the news constantly that Multnomah County and Preschool for All has so much extra money and people are up in arms about that, but they're working through that. So if the legislature has money and we are looking to lose PPS and Oregon jobs, yeah, I would love more information on this because I think that getting our families who are already really feeling mad about this more engaged is important with the information.
Yeah, we're happy to provide more information to you about that.
Director DePass or Vice Chair DePass.
Thank you, Chair Wong. So I'm really happy to know that we're pushing for additional revenue, and that's absolutely where we should be going. Also, protection for our immigrant and refugee families, really important. I'm at a conference right now on summer learning, and I would also like us to push or advocate to preserve any summer education dollars. The data speaks for itself. It's compelling. I mean, we're in Alabama where they had the worst outcomes in the entire state, and the efforts over the last 10 to 15 years have been startling in terms of the impacts, and not just for low income and kids of color, but for the entire district, raising up all boats. And so if there's an opportunity to advocate for summer learning programs, especially in this constrained budget environment, and considering that the state has pulled back on their funding, I would like us to really strongly advocate for that because our kids need it and our district needs it, and it's good for all of our students. Thank you.
Can I just add a data point to what Director DePass was saying? Here in Oregon, 80% of our students who were engaged in summer learning showed growth, which is remarkable because most times district with the goal with summer learning is that there isn't a slide. So to actually stop a slide and show growth with over 80% of students is pretty remarkable. So just a data point to emphasize what Director DePass shared.
Yes, and I think we have 2 years of really recent data to prove that.
Great, thank you. I'll call on myself. I want to also second what Vice Chair DePass said. The summer slide is real. It really affects our students a lot, especially the students in most in need. I also want to just kind of second on the Education Stability Fund. I think it's really important to push on that. I mean, just give some real data. We've already, in the last 2 years, already had $80 million in cuts, or $78 to $80 million cuts. And then this year we're looking at another 50, right, for a total of $130 million. I mean, economic downturn or not, raising costs, inflation, all that is, I mean, $130 million slopped off our budget. That's the entirety of my term on the board. When I started, for first year was a cut $30 million, and it just keeps growing. So if there's no argument for if it's an economic downturn or not, I mean, that's pretty obvious. And to see that also a lot of districts are in threat of going under strike, especially after ours, and it's a mess. So I think really pushing on that, I think it's important. That's what it's there for, not to be, coddled and babied and watch grow. So I just want to push on that. I also would like to any updates if there's any pushback from legislators from that, because it'd be important to kind of really target who we need to talk to. The second thing I also want to just kind of bring up really quick is, and I was going to write this in the email, but I think since we're all here, this is mostly to Ben, if it would be possible to coordinate with our unions, because I think we're all in this together, SAIU, PAT. Last year when we came down together to lobby the legislators, it was a very powerful scene when we're all kind of staying together and saying the same message. I think that would be very important to kind of really coordinate with our unions. That's all I have. I don't have any questions. But if it seems like, I guess the only other last thing, not as important, but the unfunded mandate part, if there seems to be some kind of give in there, maybe we can start pushing a little further and looking at current unfunded mandates that they could ease off on. I just want to keep pushing that because those unfunded mandates are really killer. So thank you.
And Chair Wong, if I may, we've been having a lot of really productive conversations with our union partners. I had a long conversation with them today, and a lot of these engagement opportunities are in coordination with them. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to really build a cross-sector, multicultural, community group pushing for these things. So I'm really excited about that work.
Awesome. Thank you. Good to hear. I believe that Student Representative Retorto is next, and then Director Sullivan.
Yes, thank you. Me and Ben talked earlier today, but just publicly, I'd like to say that I would love to see some public support for Representative Gamba's bill to, colloquially referred to as kick the kicker, because that's another big way that the state could get more revenue. In addition to decoupling. So that's, I think, something that I would like to see. I would also like to see a lot of public engagement around, like, during our talks about this budget, talking about, what's happening, what we're doing about it, but then also why the money's coming out. Of course, we have rising costs, and of course we have declining enrollment, but a big reason that for these cuts is the actions of the state government, and I think that the voters need to know, what their elected representatives are doing, and why they're putting us in what is frankly a very tough spot. So I think that's all I have for now, but we'll see.
Okay, I went to a City Club meeting last night, and there were people who are reporters in the Capitol who were talking about what was going on. And it was just kind of quietly said, somebody said, I think I heard they actually might be going to use the fund. Nobody knew for sure. Lou Fredericks was there. He didn't say for sure either, but I'm with Stephanie, and why in the world we've got this money and it's money that gets replaced. Why are we not spending it? And so to be clear about exactly what it is, how we get to use it, what has to happen to get it, to open it up so we can use it. I think that's really important that we get that information out to our parents so they can get mad. I mean, why are we sitting on this? So I agree, and Ian, from you, I would like to get more information about the kicker thing that's going on, because people keep saying we can do something about it, and then nothing ever happens. And I remember seeing Gamba talk about that, but that wasn't even mentioned last night at all, except for, oh, well, we can't do that. So I'm just curious what's going on.
The issue with the kicker is a little more challenging as it's in our state's constitution. So there would have to be a vote of the people. And that's why that conversation doesn't seem usually to come to the forefront. That doesn't mean it can't.
Yeah, I think Gamba was talking about somehow getting it in other ways too, without having to send it out. But
the corporate kicker.
Yeah.
He's talking about the corporate
kicker. Gamba, at least when I talked to him, he was talking about changing the way the state, or changing the metrics of the state economist to make it so that the kicker basically never kicks, so to kind of skirt the constitutional amendment process. But that's just what I heard. Also, sorry for the camera quality. I'm working off a pretty terrible webcam here. So you guys are getting a visit from Casper the Ghost tonight.
A little foggy.
Here we have Director Split and then Director Chase Miller.
Hi, I have a few things on my mind related to this, so I have some questions and just some comments. One thing that I just noticed, how sometimes when you see something and it's bolded and you don't quite look at it until later, but I almost wonder if this is a tiny little wordsmithing kind of thing, so I'm starting small here. But where it says no unfunded mandates, I wonder if it should say like no additional unfunded mandates to remind everybody that they have given us so many. So if we could change it to that without it affecting our ability to like vote on it or move it tonight, I hope it would be a minor enough adjustment that it wouldn't be an issue. I don't love last minute amendments, so I realize I'm being a total hypocrite right now, but it seems like such a small nuance that maybe it would be okay. And I'm seeing nodding heads, so when the time comes, we can maybe make that adjustment. But I do think it's really important to remind them that we're not asking for no unfunded mandates. Like we already have a ton, so I think it's just like no more, please. And then yeah, take them away, but that'd be good. I also wanted to ask a question about advocacy when it's not necessarily on the agenda, and this relates to what people were just asking about with the kicker. I'm going to bring up another bill in a second too. And I just wanted to ask, you know, just in my OSBA engagement, one thing I've picked up on there is like if we're speaking as like a member of OSBA, we have to like keep a certain of the legislative policy committee that you all kindly helped me get on. We have to speak like in accordance with that those positions, but as elected officials, like on our own, we can maybe do things that are like extracurricular to that main agenda. And I just wanted to ask if that's generally copacetic. So if somebody did want to engage on Gamba's kicker bill, I'll give you the number in a second. You could. I just wanted to ask if that's okay.
I'll just jump in. Yes, we have, this happens every session where some of our partners, our educational advocate partners, want to be more, I'll say conservative. You know, they want to be more working on legislation that they know is going to pass, and we've taken positions that are, you know, maybe don't have a strong chance of getting passed, but they are what we believe is the right thing to do. So that is something that always happens every year, and we just have an understanding with them that we are who we are.
I was using that as like a bit of a metaphor and applying it down to us, like as board members, if we're allowed to weigh in on bills that aren't on our agenda as
I see.
officials on our
You
own.
mean
I'm sorry for not being more clear.
Sorry, the PPS legislative agenda?
Yeah, like if somebody wanted to weigh in on Gamba's kicker bill, it's not precisely in our agenda. Is that okay?
I think we tried to make the agenda broad enough that it's additional funding for schools. So if there's some, you know, and Ben was giving an example of the disconnect, and I see you don't have to have your hand raised, Ben. I'll call on you next. If there's a funding bill, I would say I would ask all of you to check with Ben before you testify, or if you're talking with the legislator, so that he can keep track of who's doing that. And then if for some reason it's a bill that the board has decided that they don't want to support, and then an individual school board member as an independently elected goes up, I mean, I think that's, you know, you take the risk of not having us taken as seriously if one or more people are off doing things. But mostly I just think just keep Ben in the loop on what you're talking about. And Ben, did you want to add something? Sorry, I just jumped in.
Yeah, I think you know, the intention of the legislative strategy and agenda that we laid out for you is really to kind of set the container of how we're approaching the session. But it's not an extenuated or exhausted list of all of the items that we'll be advocating for. So there'll be bills, there'll be amendments, there'll be changes that we'll be engaging on. The dynamics of the session will shift, especially after the February 4th revenue forecast. So things are going to be changing very quickly. And so, you know, as a team, the collective, we are going to have to pivot quickly. And that's just part of the process. But I think, you know, in my world, in my role, I'm really trying to prioritize communication with, you know, Chief Kafoury and Dr. Armstrong and all of you. And so as long as we're just kind of working off the same page and are clear in what each other's roles and how we're engaging, I think that's the most important piece here.
Awesome. I love that. I did want to share the bill for Gamba is House Bill 4125. It's not a referral. Chief Kafori, because he's doing this like thing where he's changing the methodology. So like the constitutional piece would change. He's very proud that he has been told by LC that it's constitutional and would avoid a vote of the people to change it. So that is that bill. It's still a really hot topic. We have a mandate from our voters in Portland to advocate for things like this, in my opinion. So go for it, you know, as long as you're talking to Ben, as we just discussed. So, but I will just say that, like, you will, in many spaces, it's just politically fraught. It's a big deal to the Republicans to keep the kicker. They consider it sort of a holy grail in their belief system, I guess. I don't know, whatever. So that's why it isn't being talked about more. But I did want to share that that bill, along with federal decoupling, is where the parent advocates seem to be centered. I have kept myself, for better or worse, on the emails. So I'm still seeing all the chatter of the parents that are leaning in with the Oregon PTA and Community and Parents for Public Schools. And that's definitely what they're centered on, is the revenue question and those two general concepts around decoupling and the House Bill 4125. I also wanted to flag for everybody a bill, House Bill 4112, that is aiming, listen up, my outdoor school peeps, that's aiming to sort of get back to what the ballot measure was that passed, that was ignored last session. So to kind of like tighten up whatever language or loophole they were able to use to reduce that funding. And I know particularly Director LaForte, I think everybody, but particularly Director LaForte, Director Engelsman, I remember you had a lot of questions and concerns on outdoor school. So you might just want to check out that bill. It might be something you might be interested in weighing in on or whatever. So again, that's House Bill 4112. The bills aren't out yet. And I just looked, and we had gotten a copy of the bill from the sponsor, Zach Hudson, who's the chair of House Education, but they sent their other LC, like you get two LCs, and he sent us his other one back, so his staff did. So we have one on student government for colleges. That's not, so I don't know what it actually says. So look at it, see if you like it. But if you are an outdoor school stan, I thought you should know about that. And then the final thing I wanted to just say, like really big picture, is in my humble opinion, there's just going to be a lot of pushback on those of us being really bold on budget asks because of how just dire the state budget situation is for the next 3 biennia, frankly. And this is because of the passage of HR 1. So we have like a real buzzsaw situation for us. We have declining enrollment, and like it's not neat. It's not like you lose 30 kids from a school and you can lose a teacher. It's like that's 2.5 kids per class. Like that's still the same number of teachers and staff. So it's just a really tough adjustment. So I'm not trying to say like, don't lean in on that engagement or those tough conversations with legislators, but just know that like I have taken parents before HR 1 passed into rooms to talk about school funding, and it's been deeply demoralizing the way that we've like heard back from legislators that are like, well, what do you want us to cut? What do you want us to do? We have no choice, right? And it's like even more dire now. So I just kind of want to like steel everybody for that reality. By the same token, not telling you not to do that because somebody needs to do it, right? But it might be you, but like just know it might feel real bad. So I just want you to be prepared for that, because I did not prepare for that, and it was really hard to hear some legislators that I've known for a long time be pretty critical of parents who were visiting and telling their stories and asking for more school funding last year. So with that, like sobering thought, I'm done with my talking. This is my thing. So I had to say some things. Thanks for listening.
Director Chase Miller, is your thing related?
Yes.
Oh, I was just wondering. Just because I also had a follow-up, but you go first.
Okay. I just wanted to start by saying I really like this set of priorities, revenue, and supporting our kids who are at risk are rightly at the top of our priority list. I was curious about, I was really glad to hear that we are working closely with our union partners on this. I'm curious about the extent to which we are partnering with other districts as well as the community partners that work in our schools. I'm thinking SEI, BPI, Children's Institute, Latino Network, those sorts of organizations.
Yeah, Director Chase Miller, I'll take that question kind of separately. In regards to working with other districts, the joint advocacy day that we're going to be attending is with districts from all over the state. So really we're working on a coordinated advocacy approach, as I mentioned, across the state, corner to corner, and our lovely colleagues, the association colleagues, are helping to coordinate that. And I think, as I'm getting up to speed, I think also working with some of our community partners is important. And I think that's a good direction from you all, and we'll continue to work. I know they have their own priorities, but they also really rely on us to work in partnership together. And so we need to be strong so that they can be strong. I think that's an important symbiotic relationship that I'm happy to start to build out.
Thank you. I work for an organization that's a nonprofit that works in our schools, and what happens in our schools impacts our ability to serve the schools. And I just think it's a powerful opportunity to kind of join forces and bring in that many more voices. Thanks, Ben.
Certainly.
I'll just jump in. Director Chase Miller, we have developed in really strong relationships, especially with our Sun School partners and other community partners. I know Dr. Armstrong works very closely with Stanford Children and the Children's Institute. So we have those relationships. It's going to be we're going to introduce Ben to all of our partners who are vast and wide, and together we are strong.
Well, we at SMART, we are part of an early literacy coalition of other literacy nonprofits. We call ourselves ELSA, and we have a lobbyist, and I'd be happy to connect you with her.
Yes, would love that. And a lot of just to add on to Chief Kafoury's point, a lot of the revenue we're working is in conjunction with a lot of our partners who are working together.
Student Representative Ricardo.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up something you said, Director Split, in that you are going to face a lot of pushback asking for more funding in all of these rooms. I've been in these rooms, I've talked to representatives, and every time, they do the same thing, and they say, what do you want us to do? We don't, you guys don't have money because the state doesn't have money, And the reality is that the state's tax system is broken, but they need to fix it. And that's what we need to push for it. When we get into these rooms, and we say this is too much. $50 million, over $100 million in 3 years is way too much. And they say, well, we don't have money. Then I feel like the natural response is then get more money, because the state government, I feel like, in my personal opinion, needs to be taking a hard look at the way that it raises money, and making some major changes. I think that most certainly includes advocating for the overturn or reform of measures 5 and 50. And so it does feel very demoralizing, when they say there's nothing that can be done. But I think that there is something to be done. You just have to go further up the stream.
Thank you. Well said. Dr. Engelsman.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I guess it just needs to be said that it's somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy to either continue to underfund, or if the legislature were to use this Oregon Education Stability Fund to properly fund schools, imagine if we had schools that sort of looked like the best schools, not only in the state, but in the whole nation, the self-fulfilling prophecy of it is that people would come to our schools. And so our enrollment would go up. And so funding would go up, and it wouldn't be a constant drain on the system or even a drain on this Oregon Education Stability Fund. It would fulfill itself. And so imagine if we use this fund to put EAs in every classroom, paras and classroom caps that they're talking about with actual funding. Imagine if we put language in kindergarten classrooms across the city and everyone started learning a language. Imagine if we had art and music and drama and everything. And I mean, like, it would probably take 2 years of actually using $1.2 billion statewide to give a boost to these schools that would make them free and better than any other school you can find in a 20-mile radius from wherever you live. So that would then mean people have great free schools, so they have more disposable income. That's going to boost our economy. Imagine if we paid for after-school care. People would then be able to stay at work longer or work entirely out of the home. I mean, like, the fact that our legislators are not recognizing that the do loop that they have put us on is a downhill slope, but they could easily turn it around and make it something that Finland is talking about, rather than us talking about how great their school system is. So yeah, I appreciate that we're going to get pushback, but if we were to use that fund to make our schools great, then we'd have more in the general fund to put towards Medicaid or to put towards transportation, because our schools would be great and they'd be fulfilling themselves and they'd be paying for themselves. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's also very well said. I just, before we move to a vote, I just want to share to everyone who created this document. I really appreciate the focus of our legislative priorities, because I think it's important to stay focused, especially in these crazy times. So thank you for creating this document. It's great. I just want to make sure that check in with Ms. Bradshaw. Is there any public comment signed up for this?
There's not.
All right, unless there's any last comments or questions, we're going to move to a vote.
Chair Wong, just to be technical and follow the process, there is an amendment, so you want to be sure to call for the, I think it was Director Splitt's amendment. I want to be sure to follow that process and put that quickly on the table and then include that in your vote if you can.
Right, and the amendment was to add additional.
It was to add additional unfunded, additional was the word, in front of the unfunded mandates.
Great.
And can I ask, did we put it on the original resolution on the table yet? I don't know if I missed that or, okay. So this.
Let's go ahead and put the original resolution on the table, and then we'll talk about the amendment. Director Sullivan, did you have a question? You're on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, gotta find him. Where is he? Ben, sorry. Wanted to ask Ben. Lobby Day is on the 17th. Is that kind of late? I mean, when are they doing all their voting?
Director Sullivan, I think that's actually strategically positioned, because you think about the funnel that at first there's like a funnel with a lot of bills. Every committee gets 3 bills. Every legislator gets 2 of their own. And so it's like, as some of those kind of other bills get funneled out, what kind of gets distilled is some of those core issues where we get to engage in and really be a part of the policymaking and budgetary process. So it's kind of waiting for that funnel to occur, and then
Okay, so by then we should know which ones we really want to argue for.
Yes.
Some of the stuff we want might be already gone.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and put it on the table. Do I have a motion, a second, to adopt Resolution 7240, resolution to approve 2026 legislative priorities?
So moved.
Second.
Director Splitt moves, and Vice Chair DePass seconds. All right, and then we can go ahead and Director Split, do you want to motion for your amendment?
Sure. I move that we add the word additional in front of unfunded mandates on the agenda.
And I second
that.
Okay. We'll say that Director Split has moved for the amendment to add additional, and was it Director Chase Miller? I heard seconds.
I mean, she might have if she did. Go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, it was one of many.
Okay. We'll give it to Director Chase Miller for today. All right. Let's go ahead and, is there any discussion on the amendment? All right, we will now go ahead and vote on the amendment to add additional. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Yes. All opposed? Abstentions? Student Representative Retorto?
Yes.
Thank you. The amendment of adding additional has been approved by a vote of 7-0 with Student Representative Retorto unofficially voting yes. We'll now go ahead and vote on Resolution 7240 as amended. Resolution to approve the 2026 legislative priorities. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? Student Representative Retorto?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 7240 has been approved by a vote of 7-0 with Student Representative Retorto unofficially voting yes. Thank you. Now the big work starts, correct?
I go get him, Ben. Let us know what we can do.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing you all in Salem.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.
All right, next up is the consent agenda. Board members, if there's any items you would like to pull for a separate vote, please indicate that now.
I don't want to pull something for a second vote, but I want to be able to say something. We can do that, right? We can do it out under discussion.
Yeah, so let's put it, right after put it on the table. Yeah, I'll call it.
Brad, thanks.
Ms. Brashaw, has there been any changes to the consent agenda?
No.
Thank you. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Sorry, I missed who moved. Was it?
Second.
Director Sullivan moved.
Okay, thank you. Director Sullivan moved. Vice Chair
second.
Seconds the consent agenda. We'll now move to discussion. Go ahead, Director Split.
Thank you. I feel like I'm going to be publicly somewhat inarticulate, but I'm going to do my best here. So one of the items we're going to discuss today has to do with contracts for some seismic work. And I think it's the first contracts for seismic work we're seeing, which is something to celebrate and I support moving forward. And at the same time, I just have some trepidation about a conversation at facilities, which I had not seen when I first saw the contract post. I watched that conversation and I still have some feelings about essentially deciding on something like 10 schools that we are not going to consider when we talk about right sizing. I don't know how to describe it. It just feels a little unfair to other school communities. There's been discussion about, do we want to necessarily invest in some of the most risky buildings? Some of them are some of the older buildings. If we're going to be closing, might not some of those be the ones to look at? And my understanding is that the staff made a decision that those 10 buildings are not in that category and we're fine. I just have to voice that I felt surprised that that decision was made, I guess, without us talking about it, I guess. So I'm going to vote yes, because I'm certainly not going to vote no on making our schools safer for kids. But I guess I just want to put on the record that with the right sizing conversation looming, I just felt I feel a level of discomfort with moving forward on projects when we haven't had that discussion. But I understand if others disagree. I just really just wanted to put it out there that I have a concern about that. And also just haven't admit freely that part of the problem is I'm not on facilities. So if the facilities committee made this decision and I just wasn't there and haven't been tracking, then that's fine. But I just, I had to say something before making this vote today. So thank you for letting me.
Director Chase Miller.
Thanks. Director Split, I'm glad that you brought it up. I have similar discomfort. I have voiced a couple of times that I really want us to be conscientious in the decision making around the buildings that we are making seismic improvements on, and that we're doing that with the full scope of consolidations and like balancing all of the things. I have felt heard by the team, like that has been received well. But I guess what is uncomfortable for me is just not having any insight into that process or what that looks like, or how we've arrived at the point where it is these schools that we're putting money into right now when we haven't begun the conversation about consolidations yet. So that's something that would be helpful to me to have a better understanding of. Maybe it's something we can talk about in facilities. But Christy, I'm glad you raised it. Thank you.
Vice Chair DePass.
What Director Chase Miller said, I absolutely want to make sure that our schools are safe. Also, as someone that attended these schools, and so do my children, so do many of our children, we all have a vested interest in safety. The way the decisions have been made, I'm not comfortable with as well. I feel, we have a couple of school communities who have basically been told that they're going to get seismic improvements, meaning that they won't close. But I think because in light of our budget, our budget cuts that we're going to be making, I feel like it's prudent for the whole board, not just the committee, to really talk about system-wide, looking at the impact system-wide to the decisions. I don't think that's been done. I know Director Chase Miller has asked to provide an equity lens and to provide some transparency around what a 9.1, risk score versus a 9.6 means. I'd like to see that as well. I'd like to see us do some real critical thinking about the algorithm that we develop collectively to make sure that all of our schools are considered. I know for a fact, and so does everybody here, we don't hear from schools that are lower income, more kids of color, people living in poverty, people on free and reduced lunch, immigrants and refugees that are afraid to come to school at all. And I think that this is a serious enough issue that it needs to be a community-wide conversation. In also at the timing that needs, as we're talking about consolidating schools. I feel like this decision was kind of rushed to placate certain communities, but we need to consider the health and safety of all of our kids, not just the ones whose parents can come to meetings, not just the ones that have the ears of us as board members. So I'm also feeling a great discomfort with putting this on the line. At the same time, I want to say that I think that we all need to be safe. Our kids need to be safe. I mean, and also someone that went through these buildings, I think it's important for safety, but this conversation is not, it's not done tonight. And I feel a great discomfort voting on it, in fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair DePass. I had my hand raised, but somehow it automatically went down, so I'll call myself. I want to also push back on what was previously said. I think one of the things that I want to be very aware of, and I also want to address kind of some of the concerns I raised when choosing which schools are, get seismic updates. We have to also be careful to understand that some programs may change in the future as well. Like, for example, we have some K-8s that may be converted to middle school or elementary schools in the future, or focus options or vice versa into others, or into focus option, whatever. And so I think looking at what the schools are now compared to, after consolidation, what happened is a very complicated question. I also want to bring up best practices because there's a very dangerous slippery slope. Now, if I want to address like some of the concerns, like if the question is kind of seeking information and kind of knowledge about what's going on, I think that's totally fine, and I think it's worthy to arrange that. And I think that's a good question to ask. However, I just want to also caution some slippery slopes from knowing what has happened in other districts with other boards that have become too involved in the decision. Because one of the things is with limited funds and so many schools that need retrofitting is a complicated, game of whack-a-mole, right? And playing 50 million whack-a-moles at the same time. And so these decisions are very calculated with a lot of nuance. Something that is not something that, as board members, we have the time or the dedication to be able to understand fully. And so one thing that has happened in other districts is that when board members do get involved in these decisions, sometimes you get into crazy things like turf wars and politics, and what Vice Chair DePass raised was sometimes the loudest voices win instead of the right places to put the money in. So I just want to kind of caution about, if we're going down this path, to make sure that we are very conscientious about following what's best practices and not falling into the pitfalls that other districts have fallen into and when things have gotten overly political. So thank you. Director LaForte.
I just want to just kind of tag on to what Director Splitt and Director Chase Miller and Vice Chair DePass have said. I think where I'm struggling a little bit with the contract that we have in front of us is that I don't truly understand how the formula got us here with the big swings with BCS and Rose City Park. And we had the opportunity to ask staff directly, that no matter which way we cut that formula, those two schools are still rising to the top, and I can accept that. The rest of the list, we don't have a lot of clarity in terms of, how they made the list, what the long-term plans are. So I wouldn't have a problem, pulling this and pushing it. Because I know that in terms of planning for the next FIO agenda, that's one of my questions, is a more detailed look at how we're arriving at the list of schools that we were presented with at FIO last week, how we got there.
Director Sullivan?
Yeah, I just remember it was a couple of months ago when we were told, we better make decisions at some point because we could talk about this forever. It's really difficult to decide. But in order to even get started working on anything in the summer, we had to get permission. So I too would like to see exactly, how that decision was made, but and how future decisions are going to be made. But I am also glad that we are doing it, because we could keep talking about things forever and not get started. So I'm just glad that we know there's going to be two schools that are going to be worked on this summer and are going to be safer. And that's better than talking about getting all the schools done and not ever getting started. So I'm, it's not perfect, but it's starting, and I'm really glad.
Thank you. I agree. Chief Franco.
Yeah, hi everybody. Appreciate the time and this conversation. I will say, and I think Director Sullivan mentioned it, obviously, and I mentioned this in FIO, this is very difficult, and we know that communities are extremely vested in this piece. And so, and I do acknowledge, and I've heard Director Splitt and of course Director Chase Miller and Director DePass have voiced it in FIO. And so I just want to make sure that we're clear that the majority of these projects generally won't get started until summer 2027, right? And so when you think about the right sizing piece, which we are kicking off the process, soon, like this spring, right? And so, and also working in tandem. I look at them as parallel tracks, right? So again, because there's enough time to, in a sense, in between to potentially make adjustments if, for whatever reason, we decide that one of the schools that we have slated to be seismically upgraded, we potentially can make those adjustments. I feel like there's still absolutely time to be able to do that piece. So if I were to talk specifically about what's on the agenda today, so Winter Haven was selected because there are two significant load-bearing URM walls in the gym supporting a heavy concrete roof. It shows up in the small project opportunities section of the Holmes report. So the overall score of building part A was somewhat affected by the localized collapse hazard. And so the scores, I mean, they also depend on how granular the building parts were separated. Had the gym been a separate building part, it would score more so at the top. And so the benefit of tracking these elements in the small project opportunities, which is what Vernon and Winter Haven are, is it bubbles up a few of the load-bearing URM walls in otherwise concrete schools. So Vernon is very similar to Winter Haven from that regard. And this is why both of these projects are slated for construction this summer, as they are smaller in construction cost and impact than others. But but they do have, as Director Wong stated, a significant return on safety. And I would say this piece around the formula is that it took a while to kind of come up to those specific pieces. In regards to the formula is very specific to the full retrofits, right? And so that's the thing, I think, and know that we acknowledge the piece in terms of the other schools who are not on the list, and we'll get more specific. I think there's definitely a need for us to communicate in terms of more specifically on, outside of Rose City and Beverly Cleary, on why those other schools were selected, and we're going to do that. We're also coming up currently with a comprehensive list, right? Even though we generally don't have the funding for it right now, but we want to make sure that when we do have the funding, that we can immediately plug and play. The schools outside of the full retrofits, that is very specific to the riskiest parts, right, from a safety perspective, which goes back to the ballot language in the bond. And so if you think about, high return for addressing some of those, we're not talking full retrofits, but pieces, the small projects, it's a significant return on investment from a safety perspective. And so, I just want to provide a little bit of clarity in that piece. And I mentioned this too in FIO, is that we're very cognizant of, the schools, the title schools in particular. If we look at the title schools that we have, upwards of over 20, we've hit, I think, 16 of those from a seismic perspective already, right? And so that is something that we're very cognizant of, that we're looking at. But I think as you all stated, I mean, it's just real difficult, and we want to move, right? We want to move forward. And I guess it's one of those pieces, I just want to make sure that you understand is that, we are working in parallel with consistent inputs back and forth in regards to the right sizing conversation, which, oh, by the way, that I will be leading, right? And so I'm right there vested in terms of what is exactly happening.
Sure. Vice Chair DePass, and then Director Chase Miller.
Yeah, I just want to say that I would encourage anybody that has questions to go visit Buckman and go to their cafeteria, which has, you can look up at the ceiling and see the serious damage there. The beams are failing, and they're currently being upheld, all of the beams. It's a 1908, 1909 building, maybe a little bit earlier, but there's multiple posts in the middle, spaced probably 20, 24 feet apart. Those are all being jacked up and held up by structural engineering to keep it safe for now. But you can't help but notice if you're in the building that it's tenuous, and that's probably not the only building. That's one that I just recall from being in a meeting there and looking up and seeing these spring-loaded jacks that are upholding the roof. And so seeing that makes me question the level of detail and the level of investigation that have gone into making these decisions. And I'm not one to not trust, I know this is a really difficult decision. It's kind of like choosing your favorite kid in terms of, weighing the multiple different criteria and data that's coming in. But I'm still not comfortable, even though I have a tremendous amount of trust for what I think has happened. I'm not comfortable moving forward as a board member, seeing what I have seen, knowing what I know about seismic retrofits, and also understanding the work in front of us to right size our district. It's almost like a chicken egg thing. We have to do that. We have to have those difficult conversations in community first before promising buildings that will be completely seismically improved. I feel like we need to have those conversations, even though they will be difficult. They will be really challenging. Everybody's going to leave with a migraine. It's a process that we will need to go through as a community, and we will need to solve this as a community. I think it's really imperative, and it's really important. The way that we do this work is going to be, it's important for the outcomes for the district in terms of our right sizing conversations. We can't put it off. We have to do them in concert. And I would think that the right sizing conversation should happen first, and then we have a pool of buildings that we then know where to place investments.
Dr. Chase-Mill.
Dr. Franco, thank you for kind of the additional context. I do remember in FIO when you spoke about kind of the runway we have and the ability to change gears once we have a better sense of what's happening from a consolidation perspective. I guess my question in that regard is about the contract we're approving tonight, because I might be wrong, but to me it seems like if we're signing this contract and approving this right now, that would prevent us from having flexibility later. Or maybe it's I actually don't remember specifically what it was. Maybe if we decide it's a different school, we can switch the scope of work to a different school or something. I I don't envy you the complexity that is going into making these determinations. And I do not want to be in the weeds about it. But I think it would be helpful for me, at least, just to have a little bit more insight and understanding into how you all are caring for the balance between the consolidations and whether it's the seismic work or the deferred maintenance. I trust and believe that y'all are thinking about those things and caring for them. And I would just like to have a better sense of how you're making those evaluations and what that looks like.
Hey guys,
go ahead, Sarah.
so sorry, John. I didn't even have my hand up and I'm just jumping in. Sarah Norman, I had literally just jumped off and then heard this conversation and wanted to jump back on. I wanted to let you know that some of the seismic work, this seismic work that we're discussing for Winter Haven and Vernon is actually being funded out of the 2020 bond.
Correct, yeah.
It's not part of the 2025 bond. So this is, again, seismic work that we actually are able to do for our district and for our students that will bring down our overall district seismic score. So that is why we are getting in there. And Dr. Franco actually added, he talked about the unreinforced concrete roof. He talked about those things just a minute ago, but I just wanted to clarify that. And if we really need this so that we can proceed with design documents so that these two schools can be under construction this summer. If not, we'll miss our window and the seismic upgrades won't happen at these schools.
I think back to thanks, Sarah, and back to what.
Can you just clarify one thing? Because Dr. Franco said that the construction wouldn't start until 27, but now you're saying it'll be this summer, and I just want to know which is the case.
This is for 2020. So I think is what Sarah was saying is that this piece, this contract, and for these specific schools is specific funding from 2020. But when we're talking about 2025, like when we were talking about the full retrofits, I think we earmarked, it was Cleary in 2027, and then Rose City would be the following year, right? And so when we're talking about the rest of the schools, that's what we're earmarking truly is the majority, I said, would start in 2027.
Correct. And I am so sorry. I think what is on the agenda, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I was in and out of the meeting. And so I do apologize. I probably missed some things, but I believe this is for architectural and engineering design services for Vernon and Winter Haven seismic. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that is what the contracts that we are voting on. We're not voting on any of the other identified list of schools. And both of these schools are funded by the 2020 bond program.
Yeah, that's correct, Sarah. And then I also just want to clarify because I heard the concern. I appreciate you all expressing that. I heard the concern around decisions made on the schools that are moving forward with seismic. And I think there's been a couple of things that's been put out, right? We're actually in our next phase of the conversation, starting with the research part of the right sizing of schools. We have applications and grants. We also have RFPs out there. So I'm wondering if we can look to get information to the board about the 2025 seismic projects, about what's been kind of where are we at, because I believe that there is still board action that's needed on quite a few things to kind of get going. So I wanted to recapture that and ask if maybe there's something that we can bring forward through committee or to the full board on that.
Yes, there is.
Yes, we could do that.
Yes, we can do that. Yes.
Was that clear? I think I said a few things.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was. I think the clarification that this is 2020 bond funded and the decision making behind it. It's a Vernon and Winter Haven. That's in the materials we got. Yeah, and then I think there's further work to do to talk about the next tranche of work, I guess.
Yes, that's basically what I was saying.
Yeah,
that
thank you.
There's obviously still a lot of talking that need to happen, and I wonder if that whole plan might be a work session all on its own, so we have the full board there and can take action or give direction as needed.
Absolutely. I think, we have the advocacy from parent groups, which is amazing. We also have a facilities condition report. We also have experts on the ground, doing the work. And I really appreciate moving this work forward. I mean, I can't tell you how, just in my own experience being on this board, how we've moved a lot of work forward in the last 6 months. And that's really great. And I think sometimes the decision-making piece needs to be communicated, more broadly perhaps. But yeah, thank you.
I do want to just clarify a little bit the list that we've been working off of for the summer work that is coming up in summer of 26, summer of 27, and the year of 27, 26, 27, school year of 27, 28, has been presented to the board and FIO on a couple of different occasions. I don't have the perfect slide in front of me, but I can pull it up. This list has been visited by Holmes Engineering. This school has been visited by the design and engineering consultants that we did the pool of design and engineering consultants that we currently are working to procure to do the design and engineering for those schools. They have been visiting these schools. These schools have been notified that they do have seismic work that is scheduled to be taking place. And so I just want to clarify around the piece. I'm just gonna, can I share my screen, Kara? I don't know if I have permission to.
Yeah, you should be able to.
And please forgive that this is an email, but let's see. Actually, let me find. So sorry, let me go back.
I kind of feel like interrupting because I think, Sarah, you might have missed the part where our objection is not necessarily to the list.
Sure.
It's
okay.
to the interplay between, I'm sorry, I just decided to like butt in because I think it might not be the issue.
Okay.
It's the interplay between the school possible like consolidation conversation. And there was conversation at facilities where it was basically like, well, we looked at these and we don't think that they're going to be consolidated necessarily. We considered that. And that was just surprising to some of us who felt like taking those 10 schools off the table was maybe premature, in addition to being concerned about possibly the 10. But I think the people that raise concern about the 10 are on facilities. So I just kind of, so they've seen it. So I just wanted to let you know, I don't know that the issue is that it's not just the list. It's like that interplay. And I don't want to spend too much time on it.
No, you got it. Thank you so much for that clarification. I was just concerned because I thought we had these and we were kind of marching down the road with them that have been presented. So I so appreciate that clarity. I don't need to bring it up again then. Never mind. We're still marching down the road a bit, and that we understand that it's the interplay.
The way the hands went up though, I might be rocks.
Okay.
Director Chase Miller.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think understanding that this is 2020 bond makes a difference for me, and just some of the clarification has been helpful. I am fine now and feel heard and feel like we can move forward as far as I'm concerned.
Vice Chair DePass.
Yes, I just had a question. So, Sarah, it sounds like we're using our consultants in a pool because knowing that we'll have seismic work coming up, we'll have homes, we'll have other, seismic engineers pre-permitting, that there's a pool of people that we can call on. So to save time, and I'm also kind of what Rochelle said again, if it's 2020 and it's those two schools, great. And I would love to have a conversation about like what's next in terms of like scheduling and the cadence in which we look at the other schools. So I'd like to have a board wide, not just facilities, but maybe a full board work session to Dr. Armstrong's point about, where do we go from here?
Chair Engelsman.
Thank you. Just quickly, I wanted to say that I found the bond presentation to be really good. I was impressed by it. And I am, obviously, everyone knows I had some concerns or a little skeptical at the beginning of this relationship, but I'm really stoked to hear that we have this to vote for. And like, I'm kind of thinking like, yeah, we're starting to work down that list and we can take some of that 2020 money. There was a whole lot of conversation about all the bonds that have not been closed out and all the money that's been left and all the years that have gone by and all the board delay. So I'm just really excited to be able to say yes to 2 schools and then spend the next, 6 months gathering all the information so we can say yes to the next 2, 5, 10, 12 schools. And then we can be using all of this money. I just wanted to say I was really impressed with the presentations tonight.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Unless there's further comments or questions, let's move to a vote. The board will now vote on resolution 7241 through 7242. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Thank you. All opposed? Abstentions? Student Representative Retorto?
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda as amended is approved by a vote of 7-0 with Student Representative Retorto voting yes. Thank you. All right, just one more thing. Usually we have a time for kind of future topics. We had some, I just want to kind of notify everyone, we had some ideas for agenda topics. However, we're still kind of currently in the middle of following up with some of these requests, actually all of the requests. So unless you've been I'll try to follow up with you this week or staff will, and we'll again talk about it during our next meeting when we're in person. So I just want to kind of give you that update. Unless there are any other items. No other items, thank you. All right, thank you all for being here tonight and really appreciate all your time. It was a short 2-hour and 10-minute meeting, so thank you.
Beautiful. Let's do more of those. Thank you, Chair Wong.
All right, thank you. This
Good
meeting
night,
is
everybody. Thank you.
Too.
Good night.